climate change mitigation through stopping deforestation. And we protect hundreds and thousands of acres of threatened forests by providing alternative livelihoods for forest communities so that they don't have to participate in extractive industries. So it's a really beautiful company, and it's my dream job, but this is just a total bonus on top of everything. So my co-founder, Andrea Palau, she's a PR consultant. She'll be moderating today. This really important topic. Capturing and recycling our waste is really paramount to solving our consumption addiction that is really depleting our natural resources and bringing our wildlife and our own species towards extinction. So that really breaks my heart, and it sounds really sad, but I do feel like there's just so many people that are working towards a solution, and I do feel like there's hope. So efforts towards circularity is very much a sustainability goal for many. For some, it might be just a marketing campaign at this moment, but really there could be a time when we will have depleted all of our natural resources and we'll just have nothing but our trash to consume. So let's get on top of this. There's actually a lot of people in this audience today that are working on circularity, so please mingle. We're not going to be able to address everything around circularity in this tonight, but we have three really amazing people working with founding companies that are really trying to tackle this. So without further ado, Andrea, take it away.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Andrea Ermecheo. Thank you so much for being here. It's like a full room, and I saw a lot of the names of brands signing up for this event, so it's really exciting. Let's jump right in. So I just wanted to throw some facts at you that are really in context of what we're talking about. And many of you probably already know this, but the average American tosses out 80 pounds of textiles each year. And clothing production is expected to hit 102 million tons by 2030. But what's special about 2019 is it's really standing out as this year of innovation in recycling, especially with textiles. So I'm super, super honored to have these three wonderful people who are really at the forefront of this recycling movement here with us today. So we have Patricia Ermecheo. She's the founder and CEO of OSOMTEX, an Osom brand. Patricia is an environmental entrepreneur who founded OSOMTEX, a company committed to keeping clothing and textile waste away from landfills. Since Patricia started her mission in 2008, she's saved 10+ million gallons of water and carbon emissions each year by preventing the generation of unnecessary virgin and synthetic resources like cotton and polyester. And fun fact, she was on, we had lunch together and I learned something about her. She runs her own company off-grid in Oregon, which is so rad. And she was, what was the show called that you were on?
Tiny Luxury.
Tiny Luxury, second season, check it out. I'm really excited about that.
No.
And then we have Jadonna Vieira, she's a controller at Rothy's. She supports business strategy and defines financials at the company. In recent years, Jadonna has dedicated her career to the mindful production of consumer goods at Visco, Artifacts, Uprising, and now Rothy's. She's been a CPA, serving on the board of Canada's Fashion Takes Action and the Living City Foundation, one of Toronto's conservation authorities. So thank you, Jadonna, for being here. We're really excited to speak to someone from Rothy's because SFA really hasn't connected with anyone there. So thank you for answering our email. And then we have Andrew Graham. He's the director of custom projects at Marine Layer, as well as the leader of Marine Layer's sustainable efforts, aptly called the Green Team. His primary role is developing new sales channels, including corporate swag, wholesale, and brand partnerships. And he was a part of the brand's recent Respun collection launch that happened just late April. It's a collection of one-of-a-kind tees made from old ones. So thank you again for being here, guys, and I will get to my questions.
Marine Layer does all our corporate swag, by the way.
So there's lots of talk about circularity. I'm seeing a lot of articles about it. I'm in PR, and so I'm constantly keeping on top of what's going on and what's trending. But I'm seeing companies, fast fashion companies, also claiming a circular model, which like Zara, Forever 21. And so I kind of want to talk more about like what circularity really means. And I'm wondering if each of you could take a moment and just talk about, you know, what a circular economy means to you when it comes to apparel, and how does your company contribute to that?
So, hi everyone. I see some faces that I know from other events. Thank you so much for making it here. Even it is a really small group, but it's great. I was talking to some of my friends here that it's great to sometimes have small groups to be able to be more intimate in the conversations, because sometimes they get a little superficial. So I want you guys to take something in return of these conversations that we're going to have here, and be a little more raw about what we can talk about. Yes. So in our case, in OSOMTEX, what we try to do is help other companies to close the loop on their textile waste. So what I'm doing right now is just meeting like a psychologist with a brand and just listen to their problems, to their specific waste problem, and have, you know, offer them solutions to take back all their waste and put it back into their own products. So what, you know, I am recently partnered with Reformation, so that's one example that I can give that I'm pretty sure everybody knows about. So that's pretty cool for us, because the way I see it is the way a tree works. You know, a tree just grows. You know, when you live in the Pacific Northwest or wherever you have the 4 seasons, you get to see how the tree, you know, the leaves fall down, they go to the floor, they become food to the earth, they come and back again. So it's like circular economy is just like that. Let's imitate nature. So that's the way I'm trying to help other brands, just to make it part of a natural cycle of what it would be anything in nature. So that's what we do, and we do it with textile waste. That's circular economy to me is just a natural thing.
Mimics the natural cycles of life in the earth. I love that.
Yep.
I'll probably just add on to what Patricia said. We also start with waste, so our shoes are made from plastic, recycled plastic water bottles that are then spun into yarn, dyed, and 3D knitted onto a shoe last to create a shoe. So for us, I think that's part of how our journey in the circular economy is. We start with waste that's already in a landfill or in an ocean,
Right.
and how can we make better use of that with everyday goods. I think the second thing that we do for the circular economy is that we build them to last. So recycled plastic polymers are extremely durable. They last for decades. And we want women to wear the shoes for like a long time, you know, wash after wash. Some of you may know our shoes are machine washable. And so we don't build for trends, we build for durable products that people just can keep in their wardrobe and use for decades. When you do decide that you're ready to retire your shoes, or your shoes are at end of life, we help you to repurpose those into renewable energy. So you can actually put your shoes through a program, and we can talk about that a little later, but we put your shoes through a program that allows them to be recycled.
So we recently launched our Respun program, and we would love to continue to use more textile waste, but the way that we've primarily looked at the circular economy is actually taking old t-shirts from our customers and seeing how we can leverage our community as much as possible. Our biggest the idea behind our program is, as we become a bigger emerging brand, that we have a larger community, and how can we engage that community to be able to take their waste, or those shirts that are piling up in the back of their closet that they don't want anymore, that may just end up either in landfill or at Goodwill and may never get sold. How can we take those and repurpose those, and then break them down and turn it back into a new t-shirt that you're going to want to buy and use? So it's a similar model of being able to find waste, but less so of what's already there and what we think is actually going to end up there later.
It's pretty, I can add something to that. I mean, I can totally relate to that, because the way we started was with post-consumer 100%, and what we invented, what this yarn coming from post-consumer, because the technology that we use can recycle not only cotton t-shirts or t-shirts, but clothing with zippers and buttons and pants and whatever you put in there. So we have the Osom socks made out of that. So I totally get your point on, you know, people feeling frustrated about donating to Goodwill because they, you know, they don't really know what it's going to happen to that clothing, if it's going to ship to Africa and then it's going to be burned anyways, but in another continent, or it's so finding and more people trying just to offer solutions for post-consumer waste is it's very amazing, because it's 26 billion pounds. So we cannot do it alone. So of course we need more initiatives. And it's great. I've noticed that a lot of people like to have now the power of saying this t-shirt is going to transform into that, and if I want to wear it back, I'll be able to do so. So it's very exciting. I'd like to hear that.
It's like an access and education problem
Yeah.
in so many ways. It's like, how do you, like, you only know Goodwill, or you only know what you like, where can I take this? And there's only been 1 or 2 solutions for where you can go donate clothes. And so like creating more programs out there just allows you to have just more access to giving it to somewhere where you know where it can end up.
Right.
And knowing where it's going, because in reality, a lot of these secondhand shops are only able to sell, I think it's like 20% of what they receive, or less.
I don't have that percentage, but I know, you know, they have been doing good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the fact that Goodwill and Salvation Army have existed for a long time, it has been helping. But after being so inside of the industry, I've noticed that a lot of the clothing, anyways, was going to other countries and ending up in other landfills. Maybe not here, but you know, so they have done a good job. It's just that it's so much, and then fast fashion came and made it 1,000 times worse. So that is what we're dealing with.
Can you talk a little bit more about the origin of how you even got into textile recycling?
Yeah, I actually got into it because I wanted to help. I grew up in South America. That's why I have an accent. English is my second language. So I grew up in South America, you know, near a lot of communities in need, and I wanted to help. And I even, you know, I saw the opportunity of taking secondhand clothing to those countries that I could help for low-income communities. Started collecting clothing myself, you know, along with partnerships in warehouses all over the country, and noticed how they were throwing clothing away because the clothing was extra large. And just because a South American person, which is tinier than an American person, couldn't wear it, they were just sorting it out. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't work for me. You know, I am going to find a way to just recycle that and transform that into another thing. And then you know, after a long research, I came up with the technology of being able to shred clothing and transform it back into first non-wovens, which was insulation and carpets, underlays, and things like that. And then I wasn't satisfied with that. I wanted to evolve to yarn. Then yarn came, and then the Osom brand came as a proof of concept, the socks. Because believe it or not, for people it's very hard to understand and believe that you have come with this idea. It's like, why would you think about doing something like that? And it's very nice to see that the awakening of other humans into this problem, just like we awaken to the food problem, right? We started with food, and we realized how bad we were poisoning ourselves, and now we are doing it with fashion. So it's just it's a progress of evolution of the human more than anything, what we are experiencing.
It's such a powerful, untapped like learning opportunity too, because I think the average person is motivated and inspired to be able to like recycle or do something once they're done with their clothes. They didn't know any better than to donate it, and not all clothes can be donated. When you tell people that, they want to do the right thing. They're like, oh yes, you're right, this piece of clothing is not donatable. It's not for somebody else to wear. What can I do with it?
Right.
So that empowerment, I think there's so much more to do just to empower everybody to recycle clothing. That concept just needs to get out more.
Yeah. As soon as everybody understands, it'll come more people, more ideas, more solutions.
Right. And I think this city does a great job of like, trying to educate people about how to recycle clothing, which bins to put them in. I think there's more to be done in general, globally. How to recycle. How to make it easy to recycle clothing. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Like, oh, I don't want to interrupt you. We had just done a Recology tour, and that was super fascinating. And if you haven't gone on it before, check it out. You can sign up online. Recology is an independent business that runs all of the waste recycling in the city of San Francisco. So you get to even go into the kind of like a landfill area where there's things going on different. What are they, like tracks, and you're just like immersed in it. It's really awesome to see. I just wanted to check in really quick with the back row. If you guys can hear us pretty well, okay, great. So we're talking a lot about like, oh well, we're recycling this or recycling that. I've been wondering, like, how does this actually work? And Jadana, I'm going to start with you. Can you kind of dissect how these plastic water bottles are becoming shoes? Are they becoming yarn first, or what?
Sure.
How does that work?
So you take a traditional plastic water bottle and it's washed, it's treated, it's chipped down into flakes, and then balled up and spun into yarn. The yarn is dyed, and what we do is we have technology that 3D knits. So 3D knitting is a specific technology. We 3D knit the yarn onto a shoe last. It's kind of like knitting a sweater, if you can imagine that, but it's one piece. And so you're not, with leather or how you would make a traditional shoe, you take a piece of fabric and you'd cut what you need and then you'd have scrap. Because we have yarn and we are knitting it right onto the last, you don't have any scraps, you don't have any waste. You get to the end of your shoe and then you take the yarn and make the next shoe. So the waste coming out of our factory is like well below, I think it's like less than 5% overall for the entire factory operations compared to the industry average of 30 to 40% of scraps and waste. So that's how we make our shoes.
That's wonderful. And then with the Respun project, Andrew, can you talk more about that and how that works? Taking the old shirts and making them into new shirts.
Yeah, absolutely. So to make it as easy as possible for our customers to send back shirts, we said we'll take anything. Doesn't matter the contents, doesn't matter what's on it, doesn't matter anything about it, we'll take it back so we can recycle it in some way. And then we do recycle 100% of the shirt, but just not every shirt can be recycled into a new upcycled yarn, or every part of every shirt can be recycled. So we have to cut out the graphics, we have to cut out any zippers or buttons that may be on there, and then a shirt that essentially it's 40% cotton or more we can take and recycle, and then it has to be either under 5% spandex and no nylon. All those other materials can be downcycled into insulation or carpet padding or other uses, but they just can't be, the fibers can't be pulled apart from them to be able to then be used for our upcycled cotton. So the other thing that we get the shirts, we then sort them all by color and fabric. The color allows us down the line to not have to use any dye in the actual reproduction of the shirts. They're all used by mashing the fibers together once they're broken down, so there's no water use and no added dyes into the product. And then we chop them up, and I feel like it's a very similar process actually to what you do. We chop them up, and then we're using primarily right now the upcycled cotton, and we are blending that. And the problem with the upcycled cotton is it's not the most durable fabric, so it's a bit fragile. So if we were to make a 100% upcycled cotton shirt, it would not be a shirt you would want to wear, or it would not last after a wash. So we blend it with 48% recycled PET, which is a lot of recycled water bottles, ocean plastics, and other plastic waste. And then that gets our respun shirt without using no new materials, no water, no dyes in that process.
And Patricia, so you have Osom brand are the socks made from the yarns
Right.
that are recycled, and OSOMTEX is your recycling company.
Exactly.
Can you talk more about the process that you're using
For the, yeah.
for the?
So for the Osom brand, like I shared briefly, we can recycle everything with buttons and zippers. It's just that the machine diverts the solids from the textiles, and from the fiber we get, it's a really short. The other problem is that it's not, it's a short fiber. So that's why you have to blend it with other fibers that are a little longer, and that gives strength to the yarn. So from that recycling process, which is mechanical as well, we don't use water or dyes, we get this yarn that it's mostly gray with specks of color. So if you have ever seen the Osom socks up close, or the Osom fabric, it is all gray with little specks of color that is coming from the mix of the clothing in the yarn. So that is what we do. We put that we make socks with that. These specific ones are made out of denim, or blue entirely. I am not wearing, because I'm wearing blue today. but usually we combined denim and the gray one to show the Osom yarn all the time. That's the how do you call that, when your trademark, your signature. Your signatures, exactly. That's the signature thing about Osom, just the galaxy colors into the gray yarn.
I like that. It's not just a bleach white.
No. I mean, to get a bleach white, you either have to use bleach and bleach the whole thing, which we are not going to do, and or just sort for white, and you get white yarn. So yeah, that's what we do.
So this question is actually for all of you. So some recycling processes use chemicals to break down what we're calling waste. How is your company verifying the circular solutions that you're employing so that they're not creating any unintended consequences on water sources, our health, and the environment?
I can start. Again, specifically talking about our Respun program, because this is like our biggest and most important initiative. The factory that we did partner with to help us with this process, we visited. We also had, just to make sure that they were good, but they also have the lowest, their cotton is the lowest HIG MSI score. That helps us to verify that. I probably do not need to tell people in this room what that means. But for those that may not know, it's just like a very reliable source of, for raw materials. And we felt really confident going with this particular type of upcycled cotton and this partner through this recycling process to help verify just the amount of use that's going into how much waste is coming out, or what water is being used through that process.
So recycling has been a journey for us. We started with a vendor that was helping us, I want to say as early as 2016, recycling our shoes into yoga mats. But what we learned very quickly was that process didn't scale. It wasn't consistent, and I think we weren't proud of whether we could be comfortable with the chemicals used in the process to recycle. And it just depends on, every brand has a different product they're using, different materials they're using. So we put pause on that program, and actually it was that vendor that put us in touch with another vendor. Covanta is who we use now. And essentially what they're doing at the most basic level is burning the shoes, but they make a very important distinction with burning, not traditional incineration, which, and please bear with me, I'm not a technical expert, so I'll try my best to explain this process. They do a beautiful job. But traditional incineration is an uncontrolled process, and there's no guarantee that you can do anything, you can't get any positive energy from the process. Whereas they have a specific process that they call renewable energy. And what that does is takes the shoes through a controlled process of burning. But what you end up with is two byproducts. One is carbon black, which is used for dyes and for tires. And the other part of that process, the other byproduct that you get is clean renewable energy, mainly steam and electricity. And they have state-of-the-art technology. I can't get into the specifics of what exactly the technology is that they use, but the entire process is controlled and they manage the emissions to almost nothing. So you end up with carbon black and you end up with clean energy.
So fascinating.
Okay. So that is for the soles or
The-
the entire shoe?
Both aspects.
What about you?
Okay. The question was?
The question was basically how do you verify that you are recycling process?
We are
more trouble.
Yeah. No, we are going through the process with the GRS, which is global recycling standards. So what they do, they verify that the materials that we're using, is real, that the process we are using is real, the content of recycled material but because we know that we are one of the best options out there. I mean, because we don't use any water, any dyes. We're the true thing, so we are pretty comfortable that they are going to be very happy about giving us their certification, but that's the way we found out that, and working with Estella, for example, with Estella McCartney, she requested that at the beginning, but we were like, oh my gosh, we are just, at the beginning of the whole process, so she sent somebody to do it, to see the factory, to see your processes, and to kind of certify that what we were saying was real thing, and that's the way we did it. But with the GRS, what we have found is that everybody's going to feel comfortable because it's a really strong certification, and it's very reliable for everyone, so they don't have to send their own people to check out our process, which I think it's important because that would take away the greenwash part of the conversation, which is a lot of people saying that they are doing something that they are not.
Okay, now I'm going to talk more about let's get down to business. So Rothy's is touted as the wardrobe game changer and has created lots of buzz and a very, very loyal fan base. It seems like most of the people that have your shoes own like 5 different pairs in different colors. So Meghan Markle has even been spotted sporting with her Rothy's flats. How has Rothy's adapted over the years to scale and meet this higher demand?
So yes, we were excited when Meghan wore our shoes, and it just happened very recently. It's funny because when I joined Rothy's, my first reaction was that we were always out of stock on the site, and it's not a natural reaction. I guess the natural business reaction is make more. Like why don't we should always be flooding the market with shoes? But we regularly are out of stock, and that's because we make things pretty much to order. We buy very small batches from our factory. We have our own factory, make our own shoes, and I think that's part of our philosophy is just make exactly what people need. Don't make too much. A huge part of our sales, every recurring sales, are our basics, our blacks, our neutrals, our navies. We add a pop of color every few weeks. Buy a small batch, sell it through, and that's it. And so I think it's just a mindset thing.
Yeah, no, that's. And then Andrew, with Marine Layer, so you guys did this really interesting campaign during Black Friday, where you asked people, you incentivized people by asking for their old T-shirts,
Yes.
which then you recycled and came out recently with the Respun collection. And what I thought was interesting was your goal was to get 10,000 shirts, and you actually got 75,000 shirts.
Turns out a lot of shirts are up.
Yeah. Can you talk more about this crowdsourcing component of the campaign, how you engaged consumers?
Yeah, so again, we really wanted to make it as seamless and smooth and easy as possible. Like we could have gone out and said, we can only take this kind of shirt, this fabric content, and that would have made many people very confused and been like, I'm not gonna do it. So we also incentivize them. So every person who sent in a shirt would get $5 in Marine Layer credit to our website. or to one of our stores, up to 5 shirts that they donate, but they can donate as many shirts as they want and as many times as they want. But they would only get the credit once. We may bring it back once, like once a year, or once every 6 months. We're still trying to figure it out as we make it a financially viable program as well. It's kind of an important thing. We have 2 ways that you can donate to us. We have 40 stores across the country. We have these really cool US mailboxes that were painted and look really fun, respun, that you can come in and actually donate your shirt and get your credit on site. Or we have these prepaid mailers that you can send us, that we send up to you. You put your shirts in there, they come back to us, and then we recycle the mailers and get them remade, essentially. So there's 2 different ways that you can donate to us. One of the kind of really fun outputs of this is the shirts that we got have been amazing. Like, many of them are like kind of white tees that are kind of gross, but like there's been some gems in there. And so we have our customer service team. It's like our collection process is built on the backs of our customer service team. I think Adrian is back there and has processed a ton of them, and they're just like, the amount of cat tees that we've gotten is like unbelievable. Tons of science puns, like
whole album.
Yeah, they're really great. So that's been kind of a fun output of it. We're building a T-shirt Hall of Fame. So there's that's been a cool experience. It's also just the sheer number of shirts that are out there. One of the downsides of us making shirts this financially viable program is that we can't take every shirt from everybody. We've gotten requests for people who've got 5,000 misprints or 10,000 shirts here that they can't use, or Facebook has 10,000 shirts in their swag closet that they can't use anymore because there's an old logo on it, and we're like, well, we would love to take that, but it's like a lot of shirts, and we need to make sure that we can like recycle this and make it work. So we are going to continue to expand our line. We started with 4 ladies tees, 4 men's tees, and every season we're going to grow that and grow that and grow that. And our goal is by the end of 2020 to have 50% of our line be part of our Respun program. So the more shirts, the better eventually, but maybe not yet.
And Patricia, how are you getting your secondhand used clothing?
Well, yeah, for me, this question is different because I am more of the actual recycler, and you guys are more brands. Of course, I have the Osom brand, but I am more known because of the OSOMTEX process. So the question for us is, yeah, we have different points of collection, one in Florida, one in LA, and we divert, all the waste from those 2 points, and it comes from donations, churches, Goodwill, Salvation Army, people just, we haven't worked in any program yet. I think just because we are, through OSOMTEX, we are working with brands that are doing those programs. So we will be a partner for you, and if you want.
Yeah, we should.
But that's the way we do it.
Okay. I had another question for you. I totally forgot.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? Oh well, it's okay. Maybe it'll come back to me. So I wanted to ask all of you just your opinion on how far the apparel industry. That's what I was going to ask you. How much have you diverted like last year? Do you have visibility to that?
In total, more than 30 million pounds.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
Each year, around 10 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so great. So this is my follow-up to that. How far is the apparel industry from diverting a meaningful amount of waste, in your opinion? And what's the scale of your operations in doing this? So you just told me.
Yeah.
Jadana?
I think the problem, so I guess how I'd answer that is, I think the problem is still overproduction.
Yeah.
If we produced in a more conscious way, we'd have less waste. And so we talk about fast fashion. We talk about companies and as they scale, how do they continue to make sure that they're producing in a meaningful way and that they're thinking about their output. So I think that that's the biggest challenge. There's a lot more awareness than I saw 5 years ago in the industry. Brands really thinking about how to be more sustainable, how to treat their workers better. But I think overproduction is and overconsumption is the biggest thing, the biggest challenge that we still have to tackle. It's harder for bigger brands than it is for smaller brands.
Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that it's like, it appears to be a movement more so in the last year or two than I've personally ever seen it. I'm relatively newer to fashion and textiles, but that it just wasn't something when I wasn't part of it that I ever even really heard of. So it seems to be something that's becoming more and more and more important. There's documentaries about how much waste textile and the true cost and all of those more mainstream, information that's out there that people are seeing, and so bigger, more recognizable brands are trying to say, hey, here's our stance, or here's what we're trying to do, or we're trying to be 100% sustainable fabrics by X year. It seems to be like we're moving in a positive direction, but there's just so much out there that it's really, we're small, like we're very, very small in comparison to the amount that a bigger H&M or a Zara could make an impact on something that we could, at least for now.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to consume less. But if you think about being a board member and coming to your stakeholders and saying, you know what, guys, let's make a little bit less stuff. Is that realistic? So I was going to ask you, how does the interest of stakeholders and investors in your company affect your goals for sustainability?
I can speak to that one for Rothy's. Stephen and Roth, our founders, went on a journey. They have very different backgrounds. They went on a journey, spent 4 years remaking their shoe and thinking about how to do that. And we've always been in a position to manage who we work with, the partners we work with, who we want as our investors, if we want investors. And so it wasn't until several years into the business, and we were doing well, that we decided to bring on an investor. But the investor was completely aligned with what we're about. So, and I think that's just built into the DNA of our brand. We will always work with partners, and hopefully, whether we keep growing and get bigger and bigger, I think we have. I guess we're lucky to have investors, or have founders that will only bring on investors that will be aligned with that brand ethos.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
I would add, at least for us, I think we're trying to think about it as the triple bottom line. In order for us to actually be able to make an impact, is to be able to have a financially viable business in doing so, and obviously our board and investors can get on board with that. But I think it's pretty clear that if you're going to be a popular emerging brand, someone that doesn't have the name behind them, like the Levi's or Gap or whatever, you need to have a sustainability story at this point. And so I think that's something that we found to be true, and it's, we obviously realize that our new program, Respun, has a lot of legs from a marketing standpoint too. And so that's really important to us being able to make a decision, and why our board is so, behind it, because we know that it has a good story and it does really, really good for the environment. We also have to make sure that we can consistently make it a financially viable program, but that's on us to make sure we continue to figure that out, and that we also find investors that are aligned with what we continue to move forward. We did raise a round of money at the end of last year, and that was like finding the right type of investors that believed in the mission and where we wanted to take our product.
That's really interesting, because Marine Layer wasn't originally a sustainable company, was it? And then it eventually.
Yeah, it wasn't. Our signature fabric has modal in it, which is a sustainable fiber, but it's not kind of existed within our business, but wasn't necessarily core to who we were. We were more about making the softest shirt you could wear, and something that lasts a long time. And we follow small batch, seasonal product, don't overproduce, make what you need, but also, it's not like, it wasn't our first message, it wasn't our only message. But as we've gotten bigger, and this was kind of when we launched our Respun program on Black Friday, the collection standpoint, the letter that Mike, our founder, wrote to our customers was that now we've made your favorite shirt, we now want you to do something with your old ones. And leveraging the power of the community, because we're big enough now that we have a community to leverage. was a big part of being able to move into that, becoming more and more of a sustainable brand.
Great.
I'll probably also add on that investors, has anyone read the book Shoe Dog? Phil Knight? So I think the journey of the investor community has come a long way, whereas sustainable and fashion can be together and can be a successful business concept. Maybe during the time of Phil Knight when he was building his business, it wasn't, and so he had to make certain decisions along the way. You know, he talks about that, but these days it's a lot more of a belief within the investor community that you don't have to choose between sustainability and a successful business model.
Yeah, it should be that way. Patricia, I was going to ask you, you're working with some of the biggest brands in the industry, like Stella McCartney. You just mentioned Reformation, and there's several others. What does a partnership with a fashion brand look like, and what do we have to look forward to?
Okay. It's extensive. It depends on the brand, because I'm working with some pretty big monsters responsible for the majority of the damage. So that's one thing, and then Stella is another thing. You know, Stella is all about nature, planet, making things right. You know, so much easier, much faster to move the other brands, which are not in the roots, in their own DNA. They don't have this sustainability environmental mission. It's much more of a challenge. So it has taken me 2.5 years with one brand, prototyping only and convincing them and taking them by the hand and guiding them and into the process until they feel comfortable to shift, because it's a total transition for them of making things a certain way, and a huge supply chain that we have to change from the beginning. So it is very, very challenging and a lot of work and tears, but I guess it's going to be worth it, and hopefully we're going to get to see it next year.
Great. That's so exciting. So I'm going to go to questions after one more question for all of you. Oftentimes when I'm approaching people about sustainable fashion, one of the first things that comes up is sustainable fashion is really expensive, it's not accessible. I wanted to know each of your opinion on just price point as a hurdle for consumers to adopt sustainable products. How does your company combat this, or make things more accessible?
I can start.
Sure.
So ours is expensive, and it's definitely something that it's a challenge. There's no question about it. It's trying to convince the consumer that you buy quality over quantity, and that our product that you're buying will last you longer than what you're buying somewhere else for less, and that you've also been able to contribute to this process. So if you donated some shirts, you get a nice little discount off of whatever you buy. But also we needed to be able to make it a program that we could support, and that we can continue to collect, and we can continue to recycle. And I really believe it is an education problem, as well as economical one. It can be, there's been some backlash, on social media about the prices of, when we first launched last Sunday, and there was definitely people being like, we love the program, it's amazing, but I can't afford a $58 t-shirt. I can't afford this $92 polo. It's not cheap. And so I think it's an education problem. It's us, hopefully, as we can scale this product and this program, that we can bring the prices down eventually. But we also, unfortunately, understand that it's not going to be for everybody. So hopefully we can continue to take donations of the product and continue to build and scale the program. But it's a real hurdle for us, for sure.
I would agree with a lot of that. So I think things have gotten cheaper and cheaper, too cheap, where people have gotten used to the concept of buying a pair of shoes for $7, and you really have to think about how that price point works. And And it's a global challenge, right? Because we've all become desensitized and used to such cheap consumer goods that when you actually think about how to make it in a way that's thoughtful and respectful to people, the environment, the cost does change back into probably what it was 50 or 60 years ago. But how do you bring people back into buying less and wearing things longer? That's a huge challenge, I think. So for us, that's our, the point. You buy in a black or a navy, you wear it for however, you could wear it for decades. You could wash them and wear it for decades. Our price points are higher because we make our own shoes in our own factory. We'll probably always do it that way. And we do things like carbon offsets, and we do things like give back and recycle. So those are all costs of the life cycle of the shoe. And so that's a learning, that's an area for learning for our customers. But it's not for everybody. So we also understand that.
For us, in Osom brand socks, I don't think they are super expensive. It's $16 a pair. I get it, it's super expensive when you go to TJ Maxx and see that you get 6 pairs for $5 or something like that. But but it's so much work behind what we do that I can assure you that I am not paying myself so you can get the socks for $16. I 100%, and I leave. Yeah, I am actually because we have I've heard so much about that I really wanted to make a difference, but that we're taking the bunches, but so some people can get to buy the socks, and that's why we don't have a big headquarters or more employees, or it's just, and I do everything from my off-grid place, and I don't pay rent, and I don't pay electricity, and I don't pay water, so all the money that comes in goes out for the brand, and that's how we are making this a little more affordable. But to tell you the truth, it's not easy if you really want to have a healthy, normal business in San Francisco. Just rent, it's a lot of money. More employees, insurances. So if we get to that at some point, because it's always changing and diverting, I understand, some of the high prices, because I also understand the huge work behind each piece of clothing. It doesn't matter if it's recycled or not. Everything that you're wearing today, you have no idea how much work is behind every single piece that you're wearing today. If you could just take a trip in one day and see, what took a human or 100 humans to make that scarab, you will not believe. And just to go to H&M and get it for $5, it's just insane. And people that have called me to work with me and have me make socks for them, they want me to sell the pair of socks for $3 to them, so they can, make a profit on top of that and sell the sock, I don't know for how much. It's just insane. So I have to turn a lot of people down because of that, because of their price points. To buy wholesale is $3. It's just it's crazy. Are you kidding me? You are. Seriously, let me take you for a ride.
Well, with that, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. If anyone has a question. Yes.
So I have a question. You're talking about price, and I think education has come up and how people don't really understand how much things really cost. And what are your marketing efforts to try to engage the consumer to pay attention to more cost per wear? And the whole idea is we don't want everyone to be on this like H&M track of buying a ton of clothes, wearing a ton of clothes, so that you guys have a ton of waste to deal with. I mean, we all should be dealing with waste, but you guys are making efforts to find uses for it, but the idea, I wouldn't think, is to just make more and more, bring your price down so you can make more t-shirts. The idea should be bring the community up to understand this is the way we have to shop, and I know you're competing against the $5 t-shirts, so you have to be a viable business, but how much of the effort is really educating people about cost per wear so that we can start to shift the dialogue instead of like, we've got to bring our prices down, how about, you know, bring the education up and the message out about, you don't need 10 pairs of raw thieves. Right. You really don't, but.
It's been an interesting conversation we've been having like this week, you know, because we launched on Sunday and our respun shirts are higher priced than our regular t-shirts, and we got, you know, some negative commentary from, you know, about that. We wanted it to just be like, oh, everyone loves us, you know, sunshine rainbows everywhere, but that didn't happen, and so we had to have those conversations about how do we educate, and I think that's a really good question and one that we're like kind of trying to deal with right now about, you know, how do we, you know, double down on how this program works, what goes into it, where the clothes need to go in order for us to make this happen, the fact that we have to ship across the world and that we're you know, offsetting the carbon that those shipments make, and you know, how can we, you know, even further show what the process is so that they can kind of, so that more consumers can understand what the costs that are associated to it, and then just being like, it's like focusing on, you know, the cost per wear and how often and you will need to buy a new product because we want to build something that can last. I don't think I have that question, you know, answered yet, because it's like we are actively trying to figure out how we can market in a way that like is true to us and our voice, because we try to be a real brand and the real voice that you would like want to talk to, and not talking to someone way up there, you know. So making sure that like it's relatable, it's easy to understand, and it's something that, you know, you would get and be like, okay, that's cool, I still can't afford that, but I wish I could, and hopefully someone that can will buy it.
How much room is there for transparency, you know? Like, maybe you can, I feel like that's part of the problem is people don't know the cost of goods, you know? I mean, are you guys able to maybe show a little transparency in like the cost of goods?
That's interesting. Yeah, I know it's hard because it's like you give somebody exactly the cost of the product versus the price that it's, you know, the price that it's sold for. And I think that is a little bit of a misleading number, especially if you're trying to build a brand, because there's a whole lot of other costs associated to that product, right? I can tell you what the fabric cost per yard is on this particular t-shirt, and then, you know, if we put a stripe or a print on it, how much that costs, and the physical goods cost of that. And so, hey, let's say we have a 65% margin on that for you know, for the cost of goods. What are we not taking into account? Are we taking into account the fact that we have a store on Chestnut and the rent there, or and the fact that product needs to ship to that store, and then we have 10 people that are staffed in that store, and, you know, making sure that we as a business can be profitable to continue to innovate on the products that we're making. And so I think the challenge with transparency is how that transparency that's the right word. The problem with giving the cost of goods versus what it's sold for is that you're not taking into account, you know, an uneducated consumer wouldn't necessarily understand the other costs that are going into running the business as well.
Do you think Everlane's model, is that like the way they show it, is that accurate to you at knowing that?
I mean, they do a really good job of showing it, and they keep their price point really low. So I think that's a good model, but I think there's challenges associated to that as well.
I would add so we internally rally about cost per wear, because we build it to make sure that you get maximum wear from our cost to make it. But I think where we take a back step is it's very personal how long you'll wear that shoe. We're not going to get into a situation where we say you're going to wear this black shoe for 10 years, and like that's the rule.
This is your shoe.
Because humans this is human nature, right? So like you will evolve and change as a human being, and where you go and what you do. So you can make that personal our customers come to us, they make that choice to purchase a pair of Rothy's. They decide the cost per wear. It's there for them, it'll last. It's up to them how long they let that be in their wardrobe and how often they use it. And I think we put that with the customer to empower them to make that decision. We can't, it would be really hard for us to focus on like, wear it this many times, because it's just too subjective, too personal. Clothing is too personal.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Question over here. I was just curious about maybe another positive unintended consequence of this. Like, how much does this, and that's probably more direct but how much does it force you to look inside to say, well, if we need to drop the price of this shirt, what are we doing for the supply chain? You know, that could make that more efficient to then help, and then you've got, you know, more, I mean, I'm guessing those conversations are going on. Just, you talk a little bit about like maybe the unintended consequences. I'm wondering about internally, is it discussed that you kind of maybe would feel more comfortable sharing that properly, you know, price point?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the startup costs of a program like this are massive, and so it's, you know, how do you divert the budget or the cost associated to this program initially versus how can we build it to last long term. I think it's a whole lot easier to bring costs down than it is to bring costs up on a product. So by making a decision to start a little bit higher than where we are at our regular product, knowing that this product is also more expensive, is an easier conversation for us to wrap our heads around about how can we bring this down and say, hey, we've learned how to better send out our mailers. So for you to send back your shirts, we've learned how to better ship our product across the world to make sure that the yarns come back at a certain scale that brings down the total cost of the product. And I think with the goal of having 50% of our line be a part of this program, I really think we're going to be able to bring the cost down, both for us and for the consumer, most importantly for the consumer. So I think that's where we're headed. But you're right, it's a ton about how we can manage our supply chain and make it a bigger business to bring that cost down.
I can add something to that. More than managing the supply chain, I think it's more about the people you're hiring. So, you know, it is people that really cares and are efficient on the work they are doing. Because if you hire somebody that it doesn't care, he's not going to put 100% of his hard work or heart and time on what he wants to be done. So it's going to take longer. So you're going to spend more salary on that person that is just hanging around and thinks that work for you is cool. So for us, we are very efficient with the people that is in our team, and we work at more 110. We give everything that we have towards the project that we're working with, so that we cut some of the costs on just hiring less people, but not in the sense that we're exploding them. But it is just that it is very efficient, the amount of work that they do, because it comes from the heart instead of from the money side or the side of belonging to a cool brand. So it's more than the supply chain and keep, you know, punching the supply chain and trying to bring costs down, because I have a brand and I am a recycler. So I have a supply chain and I have a brand. So I know what you go through as a brand, and that's why maybe Osom brand is not super famous, because we don't have a budget for marketing. I don't care about that right now. Yeah. So boom, right there, marketing out. Legal, research, sustainable socks. You got it. You know? So that's why. So, but I get it. I see your website and it's super nice. Like, hey, hello, that model, whatever it is, you know, she charges you. You know, so unless it's your wife and you're super happy. I mean, come on. So be efficient with the people that is part of your team, you know, and who is the people that you're hiring,
Right.
so that way,
Right.
I think that's one idea, or the way that we have done it.
I'll probably also add on, like, we're be a paradigm shift. Right now, we're a cottage industry of brands trying to do something different. And we don't have the scale yet where we can charge less because we're not, but there'll be a tipping point where everybody's sitting on the same boat and it'll be easier. The other thing is, you know, if we actually all of a sudden one day said, okay, you know, we're, for whatever, however we make it happen, we're gonna slash the pricing way down, people will buy more.
It's overconsumption back to the
It's
problem
overconsumption.
that started.
People will buy more, they'll give us more back to recycle, and maybe we don't have the means yet to recycle it because we're still on this journey. So, we'll grow with it, and I think, you know, hopefully we all get there. But there's more work to be done as an industry.
Yeah. I've got 2 more questions. Oh, someone in the back. In
I'll
the
go
gray.
really fast.
Yes.
It's for Patricia mostly. So wondering like what you accept to recycle, and is there like one material or item that's like the hardest to recycle, or like the least recyclable, or you don't accept?
Right. We have found a way to accept everything, but we can't guarantee that you're gonna get 100% of that in return. So if you're gonna give me 100% polyester, I cannot assure you you're gonna get 100% back because we have to work on the formula. That also works for the yarn, right? To make a yarn that it's gonna come from that recycling process, because depending on the material, we get a certain length of fiber. So that's what we deal with. We try to accept, we try to say yes always, but we might not give back to you 100% of the same exact material, because we have to create something special that works for the strength that you're looking for and the product that you want to end up with. Because that also is very, you know.
How much volume can you take right now? I mean, do you have a limitation? Yeah. Because there's a team from Thread Up here, and they take, you know.
Yeah, we are pretty packed. We are working with a lot of brands right now, and big ones, and medium ones, and small ones. So, but we have 170,000 pounds of that we can make of yarn per month. So around, you know, yeah, around 200,000 pounds per month you can take.
Are you at capacity or?
Yeah, I think so. I for the first time I'm trying to find investors for the first time. So just to be able to get, you know, a second operation running. But that's a hard part, because I've been doing it all, you know, by heart. So when I get to the investor part, I'm like, boring. What do you want to know? You know? Show me a numbers, and I'm like, okay, look, I'm working with this. Is that not enough? No, I need to see projections. I don't have that. And don't bother me with that. I can't right now. So it's like, it has been like a, you know, I've been playing with investors just like that.